And now I have the pleasure of introducing Joshua Arce from Partners with Native Americans.
Native Americans, yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's the clicker.
Well, I'm an attorney by trade, and so I realized that two things. 8 minutes is pretty much just like 15, so we'll keep everybody on task there. And also that I'm not one to stand in the way of lunch. So I will keep my comments fairly brief, but hopefully to the point. So I'd say bonjour, I'd say ocio, I'd say waste, I'd say yate, I'd say guatsi. I'm saying greetings to all my relatives in different languages and welcome. My name is Joshua Arce. My Indian name is Shgigaba, and it means bad thunder. And that's basically the thunders that come out before the rain comes, those really intense ones that get things, you know that storm's coming to help cleanse the earth and help water our crops, our land. So I'm Thunder Clan. I'm a member of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation of Kansas, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be here today with all of you. So we were talking about this as far as collaboration and collective impacts, the COVID and indigenous communities, what that impact was like. One of the things that was highlighted was Strive, and that was really something born out of the need to move everything online. And that was something that we had to pivot relatively early on in order to move, and be productive with the grants that we had in order to make sure we're meeting the deliverables, but also connecting with the communities. And in some ways, it kind of, gave us a healthy kick to get it done, to move to that online platform. But it was a mode of survival. And a lot of this that comes out of what we learned were, in fact, survival issues. One of the things we learned is that we are much more interdependent than we had thought. We heard earlier about the supply chain and how delicate that can be. And we didn't realize that some of those threads that tied us all together, and we're still experiencing adverse impacts from that. Everything from shipping delays to production delays to fuel crises that we're now in. All of those things show how delicate that system is when we go on a global scale and we're trying to make sure that we're woven together. Our Native communities often saw the best in people, but it also put the spotlight on many of the inequalities, inequities, and adverse impacts from colonialism that we were already aware of. And so it was a great opportunity for the nation to become more aware, more Native aware of the issues that we're facing Indian country. Because these weren't necessarily new, but they really had a bright light put on them with COVID. When we first were impacted by it and we were reaching out to our food distributors, or reaching out to food banks, they didn't have any answers for us because everybody across the country was dealing with food bank shortages. And so that was a very new place for us to be in. Partnership with Native Americans, we're a nonprofit that is, our home office is in Dallas. We do have a warehouse and distribution center here in Phoenix. We also have one in Rapid City. And so we serve hundreds of tribal communities throughout the Southwest and the Northern Plains. So we were able to compare and see the impacts in both of those communities and what the responses were. So when we called, the food banks and said, we need to place a bigger order, we realized we're in trouble, and there's going to be a greater need. They weren't able to fulfill those orders, and that was a new area for us to be in. But it helped put the light on the fact that we can do something different. And so we saw a tremendous amount of outpouring. When you see the news coverage on ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, PBS, radio, everything had a story about how Indian country was being affected. And I appreciated that moment because it helped put a focus on an issue that has long been a challenge for us to address. multiple issues that have been long challenge for us to address, not just in the food space, but in the water space, in the healthcare space, in the opportunity space, in the economic development space. And that's what we needed. And so now we are in a new place. We still have a lot of the same issues. And so bringing people together to try and find solutions, to bring together more partnerships, to create bigger networks, to create more access. Those are the types of opportunities that have come from this, but it hasn't been without a lot of painful lessons along the way in the past couple years. One of the other things that we quickly identified, that food reclamation is a key for survival, that local food, organic foods, community gardens are necessary. The food banks, the seed banks, and the growers are crucial. This is a reclaiming of our physical health, mental health, emotional well-being, spiritual self, and food is medicine. So everything that we've seen on that previous presenter's slide, I would echo that. And it's not just for the communities here in the Southwest. It's not just for Native communities. It's for all communities. But we also seen that very similarly in the Northern Plains. An elder from the Lakota Food Summit recently really struck a chord with me when he said, "We are not truly sovereign until our food is sovereign." Thank you. We are not truly sovereign until our food is sovereign. So as we are going through this work, let's work together to decolonize our food, to recreate the trade and market networks of the past, and stand our communities up for success. We can take the tools made to oppress us and turn them into instruments of change for our worlds. So new movements have been around, and they're really popular right now, and probably the past 5 or 10 years or so. You hear about the paleo diet, which is the meats and the veggies, and eating clean and not the processed foods, and good gut health, all of which were part of our pre-colonial diets. So let's advance our native and traditional foods. Let's advance our native chefs and our community designs to reclaim our best selves. So make this a movement, not just a moment. I'll repeat that. Let's make this a movement and not just a moment. Let's be patient, show grace, and commit to the mental health that's required. We have all been through a lot and need that consideration to heal. This has been very traumatic. The COVID experience has been very traumatic on everyone. Everyone at all levels has been through the ringer. And we all need that amount of grace and compassion and support to make sure we're able to grow again. So let's stay active. Let's stay active with our hands. Let's stay sharp with our minds. And let's lead with a good heart. Now, whether it's a collective, a coalition, a co-op, a hub, we are a community. We are seeking health, restoration, and prosperity of that core livelihood. That circle that she demonstrated earlier, that core livelihood is what we're trying to nurture right now. So as we advance the ideas of health, wealth, and prosperity, we promote ideologies of reclamation, regeneration, and reformation. Break those chains of extractive economies, the high yield, low quality, and the self-centered policies. These need to change. All communities need it. Native communities need it. We need it. We talk about this 7th generation model, that we are looking for a 7th generation, or we are living for the 7th generation, and we want to prepare what we're doing now for that next 7. I wanted to point out that we are all somebody's 7th generation. I am somebody's 7th generation. My parents are somebody's 7th generation. The little ones behind me is the next generation. They're also somebody's 7th generation. So let's act like it. Don't try to live your life only for the next 7 after you, but live life to fulfill the prayers of the 7 generations before you. You are your ancestors' wildest dreams, and you are their purest prayers. So we can leverage each other's strengths, allow our peers to lean on us in their weaknesses, and create a sustainable network for change. I've heard several times in a couple of conferences and meetings, what can we do now? What can I do now? What can take place now that we can make this change on? And I did a Dallas literary festival last week, and it was a similar question as it came to literary arts. And it's very simple. We have to vote. We have to be engaged at every single level of the vote. And that means getting the youth engaged. Those policies that are up there, you have to have candidates that are going to carry them forward, that are going to see them through. We have to vote to make sure that those policies are changed. They do come to fruition. You know, when we have an individual like the USDA secretary telling us the same thing, you know, it's the same message. And so whether it's at the federal level, at the state level, at the local community board level, you have to be engaged in the process in order to effectuate that change. So again, I appreciate your time. I say Chimigwech, Iguyen, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I look forward to hearing about all of the good work that's being done throughout this community. Thank you.